most of you guys. But hey, today's, just to kick this off, this is Bob Kane, came in town from New Jersey. He's going to go over some training for us, for you guys on the ITK, on this new portal, this new computer system that we're working on. And a lot of you guys have been with us for a while and have seen us go from just straight invoices. And then we went with PBR to go. We tried to go down the route with purchase orders, with POs. We had some struggles, and we worked through that issue. And we took that back in-house from us. Just a real quick story. We took back the PO system back in-house and hired Bob to come help us directly work with us and to implement this PO. We retooled a lot of things. I've been working on it in-house for several months, for probably 4 or 5 months in-house to get things going right and to integrate it. We're really excited about it because it's something that I think can help us out and help you guys out as well once we get this thing rolled out and in production. First thing is the schedule. We're going to roll out the schedule. The 26th. I don't have it. It's on your sheet here. Yeah, we're going to roll this out in phases to let everybody know. First, it's going to start off with scheduling going live 11/26. So listen up to what Bob has to say about the schedule, because that's where all of our dates are going to come from. You're going to be logging on. You're going to be checking schedules and seeing what's going on. So scheduling go live is 11/26, and then we're going to implement the POs. We're going to wait till after the holidays, and January 6th, all the work will be scheduled. Will be done through POs or VPOs, and we'll be working with you on exactly what those look like and how those roll out. And that's what the first date on here kind of talks about. The 11/23 is the Schedule A's, and I think most of you guys have those in your packets, and that's really your pricing. So we can get your pricing put into the system, and then we'll know exactly where we're signed off on, locked on pricing for what we are, if it's per foot or it's per whatever it is, or if it's a bid for those houses. If you have questions with that, work with Paul Gregg. We've taken Paul Gregg, for those of you who didn't know, and moved him from in the field as a project manager, and he's kind of spearheading this project for us. So he's going to be over all the POs. So it's somebody that has our knowledge. It's not somebody that's PBR, that's in Oklahoma, that doesn't know how we build houses to do takeoffs to get you guys' pricing correct. We have somebody that knows, that's been successful with us in the field, and can bring that knowledge in-house and work with you. So when you have questions, Paul Gregg's going to be your man to talk to about POs. And we'll go through more. We'll continue to communicate with you on where we're at, but it's a good thing. You know, real quick to hit on them, and Bob will hit on more, is, you know, with this, it'll show your schedules online. You'll see exactly where you need to be when. It'll show all your sold work ahead. So any work that's out there that's been given to you, you'll have a list of that. So you'll have accounts receivables that are sold ahead, and then once we pay them, once the work's done, those POs will turn into invoices, and there's no need to really track invoices or create invoices for you. So I'll turn it over to Bob. Bob will ran through it this morning, and I think it'll be good. So I appreciate you guys all showing up and attending, and you guys can have beer afterwards. I know Mike wants a couple of them. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right,
Thanks, everybody, for coming here today. As Jeff had mentioned, my name is Bob Kane from Mark Systems. Time is money, and it's very important to everybody, and you're investing some time today in spending it here with us, and I think that's a real important thing. Something to keep in mind throughout this process is that what we're going to go through right here isn't really software training. The software side of it, I'm going to explain to you. It's real easy. You go to a website, and there's a couple of links that you click. There's nothing more involved than that. What we're doing here is much larger than that. It is improving communication within Rodrock Homes. So every way that Rodrock Homes communicates to you is going to become more efficient with this system. So there's a lot of things that we have to go through to figure out how that's going to happen so that you can stay up to speed with everything that they need you to see. All right? So Mark Systems is a company that produces the communication tool, the software product. And we are located in New Jersey, but we have customers nationally. And we have hundreds of customers across the United States that are just like Rodrock Homes, in that there are base plans that are out there that trade partners bid on. The builder keeps prices on it, and then there are a number of options, so that when the designers go out there and meet with the buyers, they can sell a number of options and make some color selections so that the buyer feels like they're buying a custom house, a semi-custom house. But then when we get to the production side of things, that's where a customer like Rodrock Homes distinguishes itself a little bit different. They sell homes like they're custom, but then they build them like they're production, and that's where all of you come into play. So this system here is designed to be able to take all of those selections up front and then churn out the information to you so that you can keep on moving and you can have increased work with their increased sales. So that's a real important thing to go through here. The software product is called the Internet Toolkit that you're going to be using. So Mark Systems has a product that Rodrock is using. Your part of it is going to be called the Internet Toolkit. You'll see ITK out there. Like I said, we're installed nationwide. We have builders all over the country. One of those builders that you might be familiar with is Rodrock Homes. I think they have a division right here in Kansas City. So there are other builders in Kansas City that are working with PBR right now that are going to be using the system as well. So it is a system that's going to be more prevalent in the marketplace in which you're in, and you'll probably see the system coming up more and more with builders that you work with. So as we mentioned just a few minutes ago, time is money, and we don't want to waste it. So we want to eliminate communication breakdown and time-consuming and wasting tasks. So some of the goals of the presentation are that we want to make sure that when there's a plan, hi, how are you? When there's a plan and you have to bid and you want to provide Rodrock Homes your prices, we want to make sure that you're not in a position where you're going to be bidding without the most accurate plans in your possession. So those plans are going to be available on the portal for you to be able to pull down, and we'll look at that. We want to make sure that you know what work you have in front of you. Right now, a house starts, you get an email, and you get an email of the schedule. And you have to actually piece together multiple emails to figure out the big picture. And when things change, phone calls are still sort of happening. We want to clean all that up. So not only is that going to make scheduling a little more efficient and be a good thing for all of us, but it's going to allow you to look at a calendar view and see everywhere that you are required to be. How many people in the room work exclusively for Rodrock Homes right now? How many people do at least half of your business with Rodrock Homes? 30%? Right around 30? Less than 30? 30% or less. So the business that you do with Rodrock Homes, you'll be able to pull up the schedule, see where your crews are to be scheduled, and then execute and meet the deadline from there. We also don't want you to be in a position where you don't know when you're going to get paid or what you're going to be paid for. So being able to move to a work order and purchase order system allows the pre-definition of what you're going to be paid for up front and work it out along with the schedule so that you can see when your revenues are going to be flowing in. So it'll allow you to have a better handle on your cash flow and your work crew management. Invoicing, as Jeff had mentioned, right now you're invoicing. So you're going out and you're doing work on these semi-custom houses. So you're doing your base work, you're doing some work on the option side of things, then you have to figure out how to bill for it. That's sort of a complicated thing for many of us because sometimes the people doing the invoices aren't the people that did the work. And Rodrock Homes sells a lot of different options. So that becomes a very confusing task, not only for the builder, but for you too. So we want to make sure that that control process is being taken care of to make it a little easier. We also want to make sure that you're not in a position where you don't know what options or colors are going on to the house. So the system is going to have a screen in there that's going to show you all of those types of selections that you can see. We don't want you to have to rely on a phone call for the work that you do at Rodrock Homes, and we really don't want any discrepancies in price agreements. So some of the meeting goals here are to improve communications with yourselves and Rodrock Homes through the tool, increase business revenue, streamline processes, and put yourselves in a position where when Rodrock sells more homes, you can handle those homes most efficiently without having to increase your overhead to do so. And that's really what it all comes down to. So in order to do that and learn how to use this system, we're going to go through some system terminology here. The system terminology is important because when you get in there, you're going to have to click on some of these things to figure out what you're doing. In the package that you received, there's a manual in there that will refer to some of these things. So we'll start off a little bit with system terminology. We'll talk about what a cost code means to each and every one of you. We'll talk about managing bids. When Rodrock has a new plan or new options, how those bids can be best organized and put back into the system. And then there's a Schedule A in there. So many of you have a Schedule A report. I'm going to explain exactly what that means and how you can get that back to Rodrock most efficiently. Then we're going to talk a little bit about authorization of work. So Jeff mentioned pretty quickly that we moved over to a PO system and then kind of pulled back a little bit. So let's talk about a PO system. How many people work for other builders that issue you POs so that you don't have to send in invoices? By a show of hands. Okay. About a third of the room, quarter of the room comfortable with that. So what that means is when the builder issues you a PO or a work order, they're giving you an authorization of work. So that's telling you exactly what needs to happen. It's telling you what you're going to get paid and what work needs to be done, and it's breaking the options out separately and telling you what colors are involved or styles or anything that you need to order. It's giving you all the details you need on your authorization of work. When that work is done, superintendent checks it off as complete from their portal. That then automatically flows into the invoicing program so that Rodrock Homes doesn't have to re-enter invoices and reinterpret your invoices into their coding system. That's all just a big waste of time. So what we're doing here is we're breaking those authorizations of work into two sections. One is a work order. The other is a purchase order. How many, by a show of hands, are paid in a lump sum to perform work and you go out and buy your own parts and pieces and then you're just paid at the completion of the job? Okay, about half the room. And then, so work orders were designed to negotiate a price with you. And that price involves you going out, finding the suppliers that make the most sense, building those relationships, showing up to the job site with your own material, installing it, and being paid for that service in draws. That type of work is going to be paid with a work order. All right, turnkey contracts are work orders. How many people in the room just supply material to Rodrock Homes? Suppliers. Okay, a couple in the back. Suppliers, you're going to receive purchase orders. Purchase orders are going to give you all the detailed parts and pieces that is going to be required for you to ship to or deliver to the job site. All of us may have, at some point in time, purchase orders that pop up on our menu because even if we're turnkey, we still might get a purchase order for things like variances that happen in the field, on-the-fly items, back charges, VPOs, those types of things. So we'll talk about the differences between the work orders and purchase orders and how that affects everybody in here. Before we go into that though, let's talk a little bit about the process to the field from the builder standpoint. The best way to describe this and how it relates to this product that we're going to look at here, the software product, is by looking at a 4-ring tier here. Notice the nucleus of that 4-tier ring is you. So in order to have good quality and good production, the nucleus all revolves around each and every one of you, the trade partners and the superintendents doing the work. But before we can even get to that point, Rodrock Homes has to go out and they have to find a location. They have to find an economy of people that might want to buy houses in that location. They have to set price points. Then they have to get product that makes sense by working with each and every one of you on your prices. Then they start pulling in buyers when they make decisions. They start selling plans. They start selling options on those plans. They start putting color selections on those plans. Now more buyers start coming in the door. Now we all benefit from that. That's how your economy runs here, each and every one of you. So the way that the system plays into that is we want you to supply all of your pricing to Rodrock Homes up front for your base house and all of your options up front. So that when Rodrock's doing those 2 outer rings, that's what they're really good at. They can keep doing the things that they're really good at. Then they get all of your pricing that's on file, and it's in this system. When it's ready to release the work, after somebody signs a deal and it makes sense, They hit a button, all the work comes out to you on a portal. And then you perform the work, they approve the work is complete, and then the engine runs. So they can sell like a custom home builder, which is their bread and butter, but they can build like a production home builder and keep everybody organized, so that it's a very organized scenario when you come into play. So when you look at your Schedule A's in there, that's why it's real important that your prices are all on file ahead of time, so that the work orders and purchase orders can effectively come out of the system. A couple of things that you're going to see when you log on to the ITK. The left-hand side is the menu. The menu is going to be down that point, and we're going to go through the menu and talk about what the links are that you could click on to get access to the work that you need. What I told the last group that came in here was that we're actually rewriting this a little bit so that the menu will end up being at the top, and it will conform to your phones and your iPads and your tablets, and it'll be a little more user-friendly for you if you're not actually using a computer to do this. That's coming over the next couple of months. But for now, the menu looks like this. Some of the features of ITK that we're going to talk about when we get into the operations are you're going to have a snapshot of this week's work. You're going to be able to view and manage your bid documents as well as your plans. You're going to be able to view job starts. A job start is a selection sheet that pertains to each and every one of you. So right now you're getting a packet of paper. The packet of paper has the options on it, and it has all of the color selections on it. That's how you know what you're building. It becomes very difficult when the homeowner changes their mind. They take one of those options off, or they change colors. It could even end up causing you headaches, trip charges, money, and everything else. So what we want to do is to avoid that packet of paper, and we want to maintain it, and you'll be able to see all that information on job starts. We want you to be able to access your committed, open, and payment history of work that you have out there. We want you to have access to change orders. Change orders are, so a buyer does come in. A buyer buys a spec house, and they buy a 30-day spec house, which means that they want to move in within 30 days, but then they want to finish the basement, or maybe change a couple other colors on there. Well, there's some real important things that you need to know about that. Those change orders are grouped, and you'll be able to see them all over a period of time. I'll show you how to do that. You'll be able to see a construction calendar and those Schedule A's that you have in your packet. Before we get into all that, let's talk a little bit about that terminology that I mentioned that we would cover. The first thing on the terminology is the company. Now, you really don't have to do much with the company today, because you go out, you do work, you send Rodrock Homes an invoice, and it just gets processed. But going forward, in order to access the information that you need, the company is going to be a little more important. So you're going to want to learn what those companies are. Rodrock Homes creates a legal entity that maintains one or many developments inside of it that are going to be important for you as you navigate through this. The next thing is the development. That's a development that you actually drive up to, where the houses actually live. Because they have these multiple companies, you may end up with a development in more than one company. So we want to be able to make sure that we have all that figured out if you're working in one of those developments. Then they have a plan. A plan is determined first by the model. The model is the footprint of the house. Next, you have an elevation. That's the defined variation of that footprint. When a model and an elevation are both together, that makes up your base house bid. So when you get these bid sheets and you're signing off on these Schedule A's, it's going to be important that you know that a model and an elevation together represents the base house. All right? Does that make sense for everybody? That's a real important thing as you go through this. Model and elevation together, that's your base house bid. We already talked a little bit about a work order. Work orders for turnkey. It's also for labor. Purchase orders are for the suppliers in the room. VPO stands for variance purchase order. So if we come out to the job site and the windows are broken, or there was some vandalism that happened, or we're doing some excavating work and we hit some rock, all of these things are going to generate what's called VPOs. That's when the superintendent pulls out the iPad and they type in the extra dollars that are going to be required to perform the work to go forward. So you have another authorization to go ahead and do that. So you're going to want to get used to what a VPO is and where that pops up too. And a back charge, we hope that we don't run into those, but if you end up breaking something and somebody else has to come out to fix it and it costs money, you might see a back charge out there as well. All right? A back charge lives in the purchase order family. It's a negative purchase order. It has a BC in front of it for back charge. So Jeff mentioned that we've been doing this for a couple of months. We've been going through this process for a couple of months now. And I think that, you know, I would feel lucky to work for a builder like Rodrock. You know, I owned a trade contractor business myself for a number of years. And working with the builders that were very organized and cared were much less of a burden in maintaining the business than the ones that I had to kind of do the work on the fly and rely on phone calls and send in invoices for. So I think that that's a real good thing that they're doing this today and everybody's coming out. They pay a lot of attention to that stuff. When they looked at the entire process as a whole 8 months ago, 9 months ago, they realized that invoicing was not only hard on them, but it was hard on everybody. So they started to break down that process a little bit, and they took a shot at hiring a purchasing company to come in and try to figure all that stuff out. And that company did a pretty good job. They just didn't get the whole thing done, the whole big picture. So they realized they had a business gap, not only in the purchase orders, but they realized it in the schedule too, in the design process. There were a lot of standalone systems that were making your job harder. Okay, it was becoming less organized. So this product here, they realized where those gaps were. Then they went out and they found a product. They found us. And they fixed those gaps. And what they're doing now is the data's pretty much out there as they're rolling it out piece by piece. So what we're going to do today, we're going to cover a little taste of everything. But the biggest gap that they see is within the schedule. So the schedule is going to get rolled out first. During that time, they're going to make sure that they have all pricing on file that's 100% accurate. And that's why in your packet it says that the scheduling is going to go live next week, but they want the Schedule A signed before that. The Schedule A, I'll explain exactly what's on the Schedule A, but that is your price that's kept on file that's going to come out on the work order. But the schedule is a big thing. We're going to spend some time on that today and make sure that everybody understands what that means to each and every one of you and how that's going to work. The back office portion of everything that's happening, just so you know, is called IHMS. It's the Integrated Home Builder Management System. Just so you know, in case that word gets thrown around a little bit. So what it does for Rodrock Homes, there is not a single person that's sitting behind a computer typing things just so that you can receive the information that you see here. The reason why we put this slide out here is it's important for you to know that when purchasing uploads your information in the system, it's automatically on ITK. When a buyer comes in and an agreement's ratified, it's automatically out there on a job start for you. When a schedule's loaded, they're just out there for you. They're ready to go. So there's not one person at Rodrock Homes that's sitting there typing all this stuff so that you can see it. It's part of the normal process flow, and it's one big system in the back, and that's what IHMS does. ITK is just a portal that you access to get access to the information. Everything is integrated together. So everything revolves around what's called a cost code. A cost code is a 5-digit number. The first 3 numbers of the cost code represent the trade. What is the trade that you work for? What do you guys do?
Foundation waterproofing.
Foundation? Okay. So foundation's a trade. That has a 3-character code. How about yourself, sir? Fireplaces. Fireplaces. That's right. You said that. How about yourself?
Gutters.
Gutters. Okay. So foundation, fireplaces, and gutters all have their own 3-digit codes on there. Underneath of something like fireplaces, how many invoices do you send in when you're done with a fireplace? I guess you do a rough-in?
Well, 1 per house.
1 per house?
Right.
When you frame out the fireplace, is there anything that you're doing, or is that just a frame? Or you just come in and install the fireplace when you're ready? So you have 1 draw. Okay. How about the foundation? There's multiple draws for that, right? So there's multiple invoices coming in. So we have 2 good examples here. So for the fireplace, it's just a one-shot, 1 invoice, and they're done. So in that case, it would be a 3-digit code plus the next 2 digits represents the payment draw. 01, fireplace complete. But for something like foundation or plumbing or electrical, framing, there's multiple draws on those. So the first 3 numbers are going to stay the same, but the next 2 numbers are going to increment based on the invoices that you would normally send in. So an 01 might be a rough, an 02 might be a top out, an 03 might be a final, depending on your trade. Or maybe they're just called draw 1, draw 2, draw 3. It represents the invoice that you would have sent in at that time. And the reason why it's important for each of you to see this right now and understand it is because when you look at the Schedule A's, that's the way that they're laid out. And when the work orders come out, it's going to reference this code on them. So it's important that you understand that on there. I don't have a slide up here for options, but that takes care of the base house. So those 2 digits after the 3-digit code, the range of 01 through 50 stand for base house items. So that's your cost that you would normally invoice on the base house items for your trade. Okay, that takes the place of your invoices. When you see a 51 or a 52, that stands for options. So that means that if we have an upgrade to the fireplace, like maybe the surround doesn't come with it, we're upgrading the surround or the hearth or something along those lines, or we're upgrading the brick or a different type of fireplace, they are options and they will all be budgeted and paid at a 51 code. All right? If you are a trade that maybe has nothing to do with the base house and you're called in only when somebody picks that option, I usually use the example of low voltage or security, but I think that comes standard on your houses. So if maybe you're not doing the base work, then maybe you only have a 51 and a 52 for a rough and a final. If you have all of your base draws in the system and you are doing work on the base house, but Rodrock Homes sells a finished basement to a 30-day spec with a buyer that wants to close in 20 days, you all have to come back in there again. You already got your work order once, so you already got your base house work order. Now they want you to come back in and do this optional work on the finished basement. Those will be paid in the 50s. Okay, so options are in the 50s on those last 2 numbers. The base house is in the 01, 02, 03, 04, 05 range. And this directly affects bids. So when there's a new plan that's rolled out, and some of you, has anybody received the bid spreadsheet from Paul that you filled out? Anyone in this room? You have? Okay, most of the room did last time. You're probably going to receive, especially if your Schedule A is not in the packet, you probably will receive a spreadsheet from Paul or Erica asking you to fill out your prices. When the spreadsheet comes up, there's a column in there that you can fill it out by cost code. So what this slide is telling us here, and we could send you a copy of these slides. I'll send it to Steve. He can distribute it, or Paul can distribute it. What this is telling you here is when you open your email up and you pick on that spreadsheet, the spreadsheet opens right up on your computer. You fill out all your prices. You still have to save the spreadsheet so that you have a copy of it, and you still have to send the spreadsheet back through your email on your computer. Is there anybody in here that does not have email? All right, everybody has email. Is there anybody in here that would like to spend some time looking at opening up attachments and attaching files in the email? Everybody feels pretty comfortable with that? What I'm going to do at either a break or at the end is I am going to go through an exercise where I open up an Excel spreadsheet, save it to my desktop, and then attach it to my email and send it out. And it'll be about 5 to 10 minutes. I don't want to take up everybody's time, but I am going to go through it at the end if you want to stick around and go through that. All right, it might be a benefit to you. But this slide kind of takes you through that a little bit. Something else that's important to know, when you look at the Schedule A's, if you haven't had a chance to look at them, look through your packet now and see if you have something called a Schedule A report in there. You may not, but if you do, take a look at that for a minute. The Schedule A report was designed to go through and figure out the pricing that Rodrock Homes has on file for you. It lays it out by plan if you are a work order vendor like we discussed a little while ago. So you'll see the plan, and then you'll see your prices down there below at the payment draws that you would receive. If you're a supplier, you probably don't have a report that says Schedule A, but you probably have a vendor price list in there. The majority of the pricing that Rodrock Homes has on file that you see in these reports live in what's called the parent company. That means your price is the same regardless of the development. If you have pricing that's going to change by development, then you probably have multiple Schedule A's, one for each development. If you have pricing that changes by development and they only have it once at the parent, let them know that your pricing is going to change by development. Being that work orders and purchase orders are going to be produced real soon, I'm just asking that you help Paul and Erica a little bit to make sure that all your numbers are right and that everything is laid out correctly before the POs come out. Because if the POs come out incorrectly, it just causes a lot of headaches for everyone. Now is really our chance to nail all of that stuff down. So what they really wanted to do at this meeting was make sure that you had that in your hand, you had your pricing in your hand, and if you could sign it and get it back to them, either today or in the very near future, that would be a big benefit too, because they're the prices that are on file for every work order that's produced going forward. There's a hierarchy up on the screen, and this is something you may want to think about when you're reviewing your Schedule A. If your price is specific to both the model and the elevation, then every model and elevation will have your price. If your price is the same for all elevations under a model, so the Lancaster or the Larson, your price is the same regardless of what elevation it is, then you may have pricing under the Lancaster or the Larson, but the elevation might say standard. If you see standard in the elevation, but you have a model there, that means your price is the same for all elevations under that floor plan. That's important to make sure that that part's right. We don't want to mess that up. If your price is the same for every single house, no matter what, then you might just have one line item on the Schedule A that says standard model, standard elevation. That means your price is always the same. Doesn't matter what development, doesn't matter what plan, you're always getting paid the same amount of money. All right? That's what that hierarchy is telling us here. Here's an example of what the spreadsheet would look like if you did receive one from Paul or Erica to go through and fill out your pricing. The spreadsheet from the left lists the model and the elevation. Right in the middle, it has the cost code draws. Now remember, first three numbers represent your trade, next two numbers, incremental invoice replacements that are eventually going to be on purchase orders replacing invoices. So draw 1, draw 2, draw 3. To the right of that, you have an old amount and a new amount. The old amount is probably always going to be 0. Don't worry about that. The new amount is in green. That would be the amount that you would fill out. The reason why there's an old amount and a new amount is later on down the road, maybe we don't want to give you the full bid worksheet again. Maybe we just want to give you the spreadsheet to reevaluate your pricing because your contract is up. So you get to look at your old amount versus your new amount, and that's a tool for you in filling it out if that happens in a year or 6 months whenever your pricing expires. Then we have a column to the right that's called the option code. The option code are for things like jetted tub in lieu of a soaking tub for the plumber. This is the plumber's bid worksheet. When the house comes with a soaking tub and we replace it with a jetted tub, it involves more than just the plumber. But this is just the plumber looking at this. Do we have any plumbers in the room? One? Good. So this is just the plumber looking at this. So when the plumber comes down here, the plumber's going to look at jetted tub in lieu of soaking tub, and you're going to put your incremental price over and above the base house in that column. And the same logic holds true if your price is different per plan, per elevation, or standard. For something like a tub, it probably doesn't matter where you do it, but if there's rough-in work involved that's particular to the actual floor plan, then maybe it does. So that's where you would determine whether it's standard or model standard or model elevation.
We see that spreadsheet.
The spreadsheet should be laid out that way, okay, but sometimes you may look at it and say, Paul missed it. You know, I have to run an extra pipe or something when I do the jetted tub in this house versus a different one. So you could add a row and then put the plan and the elevation in there that the price is for. And I could show you how to do that.
Okay.
Or Paul could walk you through it too if it gets down to that. You really shouldn't run into that problem a lot because they've been putting a lot of thought into this. But if you do, certainly raise your hand and let them know, and they'll help you through it. Any questions about what this spreadsheet's doing? They're doing this work for most of you. Like 80% of it they're doing. But they need your help on some of it. So that's why I think that they're going to be like, I think you filled out one. I think they probably will be reaching out to some of you that they need some help on. Again, the goal here is to get a Schedule A in your hand. That means you've won the business. It's in your hand. You're signing it. And then the goal is to have Rodrock Homes sell as many homes as they possibly can. And you just look at that Schedule A and you know what you're going to get paid every time without having to worry about sending in bills. That's the goal. Here's an example of what the Schedule A looks like that's in your possession. Plans across the top, payment draws on the left with the dollar amounts under those plans. So you see you have a have a model and an elevation, and standards right in the middle? That's there because there's some options underneath that are standard as well. So you should have that laid out on yours. And here's an example of a work order. If you can look in your packet, you actually have a better example in your packet of a work order. So find the item that says work order on the top. It's actually not that, that's the manual. But there's should be another loose work order in there. Yeah, in those papers there. So it's not the manual, it's one of the loose papers. It's not the green one, it's one of the other three. If you look at the work order, so let's say all of your prices are in the system. And Rodrock Homes sells a Lancaster or a Larson. We keep using those as an example. And you are a turnkey vendor. The buyer comes in and the buyer makes their selections. Now it comes time to release the work. The builder goes through and they release their work and the work orders are produced. That's what the work order looks like. So the benefits of the work order are, at the top there's a work order number. That work order number is going to turn into your invoice number. That's why you don't have to send in invoices anymore. That's going to identify your invoice in the system. The cost code on there is going to represent your draw. That's what you would have normally written on your invoice. The work order will have your base house amount that you're going to perform with the dollar amount that you filled out and signed off on the Schedule A. That's the dollar amount. If there are any options that you're being paid for on that work order, the options will be below that dollar amount, increasing the amount of money that you'll receive once that work order is invoiced. If there are any color selections that pertain to your trade, the color selections will be at the bottom of the work order. So you'll know exactly what the colors and styles are that you need. If there are other options that pertain to you that maybe you're not being paid for right now, but you will be down the road, or you at least have to know about down the road, those options will be in that section that says other options in this category on other work orders. So I don't know what the example is that you have here. Well, that's like a long one. That's a community requirement option. So that's pretty much saying that when you build in Wingate, here are all the things that we need to do. So that's being combined with this work order. A better example might be, say I'm an electrician, and I negotiated with the builder that I would be paid for ceiling fans, optional ceiling fans, on my final draw. So I'm not going to get paid on the rough-in. But we all know I have to drill the holes and drop the wire on the rough-in. So when my work order comes out, my work order is telling me what I need to do on the rough-in and what I'm going to get paid for. And then down below it's going to tell me that there's some ceiling fans and the rooms that the ceiling fans are in. Now I can drill my hole and drop the wire through. And then when I come in for my final draw, I can install my ceiling fan, because my final draw is when I actually buy it and I install it, and that's when I do most of the work. So when that's done, that's when I get paid the full amount for the ceiling fan. I don't know if there's any electricians in here, and I don't even know if that's how Rodrock's doing it, but that's the purpose of that column. So if you have neighborhood included options to give you a heads up on what's going on in that neighborhood, or something specific to your trade like plumbing, electrical, it's real big for that when you need to know about things during the rough-in process that are going to help you out when you get paid on the final. That's a work order. All right, for the suppliers in the room. Suppliers probably won't get work orders. Suppliers, you're going to have all your parts and pieces on file. And for the suppliers in the room, do you work with ABG? Yep, okay. So those same part numbers were put into this system, and the same prices were put into this system. So you should be in real good shape with that. What PBR is doing is, when those prices change, they're working with a spreadsheet like this. So they may work with you on a spreadsheet like this, and then get the pricing back into the system. What Rodrock is doing is Rodrock's then taking those parts and pieces and doing the takeoffs for the base house and all of the options. And they're probably asking you for your assistance on that takeoff, or at least to verify that the takeoffs are accurate. The idea is, for suppliers, if you can work with Rodrock as a team to make sure that the proper pricing's on file and that the takeoff quantities are accurate, it is going to be much less work for you down the road, because when somebody comes in and they buy options that affect your material supplies, the system will produce the purchase order giving you the net effect of what you need. And that will allow you to not have to think about a takeoff on every single house. and it will allow Rodrock to not have to think about a takeoff on every single house. So if they're asking for your takeoff help now, it will benefit you multiple times over in the future if we can get those takeoffs right now before the POs come out. So this is a price list. Column in yellow is the column that gets filled out to put the sales price out there for all the different parts and pieces. If you're a supplier, you probably don't have a Schedule A in your packet, but you probably have a vendor price list in your packet. The vendor price list looks like this. That's how you can look at it, verify it that the price is good, look at your expiration and effective dates, and provide that back to Rodrock Homes. So here's an example of a purchase order. So a purchase order, rather than producing in lump sum, will give you all the detailed parts and pieces. And again, if there's options, it will list out the options on there.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this right, everything's going to be done over the internet. So like normally, we would send them a printed invoice with our invoice number on it. Okay, so is this gonna, any of this gonna reference our invoice number?
No. No. The idea would be that you can certainly continue to create your invoice if you're doing your own reporting and that's important to you. I'm going to show you some things that you can do from logging into the system to manage all of your payables that are out there that may be able to take the place of your invoices. But if you work for a lot of other builders and you're doing consolidated financials and things, you might still want to create your invoice. But the work order is not going to reference your invoice number. What the work order will do is the work order will list out what the memo on the check will do, on the check stub, is it will list out the development and the house number and the address. So therefore, you'll be able to link it up. So if you're paid once on each house, the check stub will show you which houses that will line up for your fireplaces.
Well, it's just gonna be kind of confusing, I guess, or, well, I guess we're gonna have to figure out how to do it, because, you know, we have to create an invoice, because it takes our product out of inventory. When we get paid, we have to apply payment to an invoice. So I guess trying to keep track of what check, or I guess we're gonna have to figure out, when you send us a check, or Rodrock, how to figure out how much of that goes with each invoice.
Yeah, there'll be a one-to-one relationship. So when we look on the ITK that I'm going to show you, I think I'll be able to answer most of your questions when we pull up the screen. It'll make a little bit more sense for you. You'll be able to link it up because you'll have the invoice that you create will be off the numbers that are on that Schedule A, which are the same numbers Rodrock has on file. So the dollar amounts will always be